A woman collapsed in the dirt of an empty road. Her knees hit first, then her hands. A cloud of dust rose around her and settled on her torn dress. She was breathing hard, too hard, and one arm was wrapped tight around the swell of her belly like she was holding something in place. She tried to stand. She could not. She fell again. Somewhere behind her, far off, a dog began to bark. She lifted her head. Through the heat shimmer she could just make out a fence line, and past it, a small ranch house with smoke rising from the chimney. The last house at the end of the valley. Her only chance. She started crawling toward it. The man who lived in that house was named Eli Carter. Nobody in that valley had really looked at him in 20 years. What happened when she reached his gate changed both their lives. Stay with me. Eli Carter was a man the world had forgotten. He was 51 years old. He lived alone on a small cattle ranch at the far end of the valley, the last place before the land turned to rock and scrub and gave up trying. He had lived there for 20 years. And in those 20 years, he had become something close to invisible. It was not always that way. Once, a long time ago, Eli Carter had been a different man. He had a wife. Her name was Sarah. He had a future and plans and a voice he used freely. And then, one hard winter 20 years back, he lost Sarah and the child she was carrying, both in the same terrible night, and something in Eli Carter had gone quiet and never come back. He did not fall apart. That was not his way. He just went silent. He buried his wife and his unborn child on a hill behind the house, under a single oak tree, and then he put his head down and he worked. And he kept working day after day, year after year, until the working was the only thing left of him. The town stopped inviting him to things. Then they stopped expecting him at things. And finally they just stopped thinking about him at all. He became the lone cowboy at the end of the valley. The quiet one. The one folks nodded at in town maybe twice a year when he came for supplies, and then forgot about the moment he left. Eli told himself he did not mind. He had his cattle. He had his dog, an old shepherd named Tuck. He had his routine. Up before dawn, work till dark, a simple meal and sleep. He had made his peace with it. Or that is what he told himself, in the long quiet evenings, sitting on his porch watching the sun go down with no one to talk to but an old dog. The truth was lonelier than he let himself admit. There was an empty chair at his kitchen table that he never moved. There were 2 coffee cups in the cupboard, though he only ever used one. 20 years, and he had never quite been able to throw the other one away. Now here is the thing about a man like Eli Carter. A man who has gone that quiet for that long. You might think there was nothing left in him. The town certainly thought so. But that is the mistake people make about quiet men. They confuse silence for emptiness. They think because a man has stopped talking, he has stopped feeling. They are wrong. Eli Carter felt everything. He had just buried it so deep that even he had forgotten where to find it. On the morning this story really begins, Eli was mending a fence on the south edge of his property. It was hot. The kind of dry valley heat that pressed down on everything. Tuck, his old dog, was lying in the shade of the truck, when all of a sudden the dog's head came up. Tuck stood. His ears went forward. And he started to bark. Not his usual bark, not at a coyote or a rabbit, but something sharper. Urgent. Eli straightened up and followed the dog's gaze down the long dirt road that led to his ranch. And he saw her. A woman. Far down the road, on her hands and knees in the dirt. Even from that distance, Eli could see she was in trouble. He could see the way she was struggling to move. And he could see, as she lifted herself up one more time, the unmistakable shape of a woman heavy with child. For 1 second Eli Carter just stood there. 20 years of solitude had made him slow to act on anything that involved another person. Then the woman collapsed again and did not get up. And something in Eli Carter that had been asleep for 20 years woke up all at once. He dropped his tools. He whistled for the dog. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Eli Carter ran. He reached her in less than a minute. She was barely conscious. Her lips were cracked from the heat, her dress was torn and filthy, and she was burning up with fever. But she was alive, and so was the baby. Eli could see the belly moving as the child shifted inside her. He did not waste time with questions. He scooped her up off the ground as gentle as he could, and he carried her. She was light. Too light, he thought, for a woman that far along. Like she had not had a proper meal in a long time. He carried her all the way back to the house, laid her down on his own bed, and went to work the way a rancher knows how to work, with his hands, fast and practical. He got water into her, a sip at a time. He cooled the fever with wet cloths. He sat by that bed through the whole long afternoon and into the night, doing the only thing he knew how to do, which was not give up on a living thing in his care. Sometime past midnight, her fever broke. And just before dawn, her eyes opened. She came awake all at once, the way frightened people do. Her eyes flew open and she tried to scramble backward, pressing herself against the headboard, both arms wrapped around her belly, staring at the strange weathered man sitting beside the bed. "Easy," Eli said. His own voice surprised him. He had not used it in days. "Easy now. Nobody here is going to hurt you. You are safe." She did not believe him. He could see that. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for exits, looking for threats. "You collapsed on my road," Eli said, slow and quiet. "You had a fever. You and the baby both could have died out there. You have been asleep about a day. That is all. You are in my house. You are safe." Slowly, very slowly, she stopped trying to back away. "Where?" she started, then her voice cracked. He handed her the water. She drank. "Where am I?" "Carter Ranch. End of the valley. Long way from anywhere." He paused. "I am Eli." She looked at him for a long moment. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "Rose? My name is Rose." That was all she would give him at first. Just a name. Over the next few days, as Rose got her strength back, Eli learned to read the spaces around the things she would not say. She would not say where she had come from. She would not say who the father of the child was. She would not say what she was running from. But Eli had eyes. He saw the fading bruise on her arm, shaped like a man's grip. He saw the way she flinched at sudden sounds. He saw the way she watched the road, always the road, like she was waiting for something to come down it. He did not push. That was not his way. A man who has been left alone for 20 years knows how to respect another person's silence. Instead, he just took care of her. He gave her his bed and slept in the barn. He cooked for her, simple food but plenty of it, and he watched some of the color come back into her face. He had old Tuck keep her company, and the dog took to her instantly, lying at the foot of the bed like he had been waiting his whole life for someone to guard. Eli gave Rose the one thing she clearly had not had in a very long time. He gave her safety and he asked for nothing back. And something began to happen in that quiet ranch house at the end of the valley. Rose got stronger. She started coming out to the porch in the evenings. She started talking, small things at first, about the weather, about the dog, about the food. Eli, who had not held a real conversation in years, found his own voice coming back, rusty and slow, like a pump that had not been worked in a long time. They were two broken people. One who had been hurt and was running. One who had stopped living a long time ago. And in the quiet of that ranch, without either of them quite meaning to, they started to mend each other. A week passed. Then two. Rose was nearly herself again, round and healthy and due any week now. And one evening, sitting on the porch with the sun going down, she looked over at Eli and she smiled. A real smile, the first one he had seen from her. "I think," she said softly, "this is the safest I have felt in a very long time." And Eli Carter, 51 years old, alone for 20 years, felt something in his chest he had truly believed was dead and buried on the hill behind his house. He felt hope. For 3 days it was peaceful. The two of them and the dog in the quiet at the end of the valley. Eli let himself believe just a little that maybe his story was not over after all. That maybe the empty chair at his table had been waiting for a reason. He should have known better. Because on the fourth evening, just as the sun was setting, old Tuck stood up on the porch and started to growl. "Oh, looking down the road. And Eli looked up and saw a cloud of dust rising in the distance. Riders. 3 of them. Coming fast. Coming for Rose. Rose saw the dust and went white. "It's him," she whispered. She was on her feet, backing toward the door, both hands on her belly. "Oh God. It's him. He found me." "Who?" Eli said. "My husband." The word came out of her like something poisoned. "Clayton. The baby's father. I ran from him 3 weeks ago. I thought I lost him. I thought." Her voice broke. "Eli, he can't find me here. You don't know what he is. He'll kill me. He said he'd kill me before he'd let me leave with his child." And just like that, everything changed. This was no longer a story about two lonely people mending each other in the quiet. The bruise on her arm, the fear in her eyes, the way she watched the road, it all had a name now, and that name was riding up Eli Carter's road with 2 other men at his side. This was no longer about healing. This was about survival. Now listen to me. If you have been with this story so far, if you care what happens to Rose and Eli the way I do, take 1 second and hit that subscribe button. Because what this forgotten old cowboy did next is the reason I had to tell you this story. Now stay with me. Eli Carter looked at the dust cloud coming up his road. Then he looked at Rose, terrified, 8 months pregnant, backed against his door. And the quiet man who had not raised his voice in 20 years made a decision. Get in the house, he said. Go in the back bedroom. Take the dog. Lock the door and do not come out no matter what you hear. You understand me? Eli, no you can't, there's 3 of them. Rose. He looked at her. For 20 years, nobody in this valley has needed me for anything. I have been about as useful as a fence post. Tonight you need me. He picked up his rifle from beside the door. Go on now. Let me be of some use before I die. She went. God help her, she did not want to, but she went because there was something in his voice that left no room for argument. Eli Carter walked out to the middle of his yard, his rifle held low and easy, and he waited. The 3 riders pulled up in a cloud of dust. The man in the middle was big, well-dressed, with a hard, handsome face and cold eyes. Clayton. Eli knew it without being told. The other 2 were hired muscle, the kind of men money buys. Evening, Clayton said, smiling a smile that did not reach his eyes. I'm looking for my wife. Pretty thing. Expecting. I have reason to think she came this way. Lots of roads in this valley, Eli said. But only one ends at your gate, old man. Clayton's smile thinned. And there's a woman's washing hanging on your line. Eli did not look back at the laundry. He kept his eyes on Clayton. She doesn't want to go with you, Eli said quietly. She's my wife. She's carrying my child. What she wants doesn't enter into it. Clayton swung down off his horse. The 2 other men did the same. Now you're going to step aside, Grandpa, before you get hurt over something that isn't your business. And here the thing changed nature one more time. Because Clayton reached back, and from his saddle he drew out a long shotgun, and he leveled it casually in Eli's direction. The 2 hired men drew pistols. 3 armed men. 1 aging cowboy. A pregnant woman locked in the back room. This was not going to be a conversation. Last chance, old man, Clayton said. Step aside. Eli Carter looked at the 3 guns pointed at him. And for the first time in 20 years the old cowboy smiled. No, he said. I don't believe I will. What those 3 men did not know was who they were dealing with. They saw a broken-down old rancher. A quiet nobody at the end of the valley. What they did not see, what the whole town had forgotten, what even Eli himself had nearly forgotten, was the man Eli Carter had been before this valley. Before Sarah. Before the silence. Eli Carter had been a soldier. A good one. The kind they sent to do hard things in hard places. He had put all of that down 20 years ago and never picked it back up. But a thing like that does not leave a man. It just goes to sleep. And tonight it woke up. It happened fast. Faster than 3 men expecting an easy time could follow. When Clayton's finger tightened on that shotgun trigger, Eli was already moving, not away but sideways, the way a man moves when he has done this before. The shotgun blast tore through the air where he had been standing. Before the echo even faded, Eli had put a rifle round through the shoulder of the first hired gun, and the man went down screaming, his pistol falling in the dirt. The second man got off a wild shot that missed. Eli did not miss. The second man dropped too, clutching his leg. It had been maybe 4 seconds. And now it was just Clayton, fumbling to reload that shotgun with hands that had suddenly started to shake, because the easy old man at the end of the valley was not turning out to be easy at all. You should have walked away, Eli said. Clayton got the shotgun up. Eli was faster. He did not kill him. That is worth saying. Eli Carter put a round through Clayton's shooting arm, and the big man howled and dropped the shotgun and fell to his knees in the dirt, clutching his ruined arm, all the menace gone out of him, just a cruel man who had finally met someone crueler men could not frighten. Eli walked over and stood over him. He picked up the shotgun and threw it out of reach. Now you listen to me, Eli said, and his voice was very quiet and very cold. That woman in there is done with you. The child is done with you. You are going to get on your horse and you are going to take your 2 friends to a doctor, and you are going to ride out of this valley, and you are never going to come back. Because if I ever see your face again, if I ever even hear your name again, they are not going to find enough of you to bury. Do you understand me? Clayton, kneeling in the dirt, bleeding, looked up into the face of the old cowboy and saw that he meant every word. He understood. It took the three of them a long, painful time to get back on their horses. Eli watched them the whole while, rifle ready in case any of them had more courage than sense. But the fight was gone out of them. They rode out slow and broken back down the long road, and the dust of them faded into the dark. And then it was quiet again. Eli stood in his yard a long moment, until his hands stopped shaking, until the old soldier in him went back to sleep where it belonged. Then he set down his rifle and he walked back to the house and he knocked gently on the back bedroom door. "Rose," he said, "it's over. They're gone. You're safe. You're safe for good now." The door opened. Rose stood there, tears streaming down her face, the old dog pressed against her legs. She had heard the gunfire. She had spent those terrible minutes certain that the kind old man who had saved her was being killed for it. And instead here he stood, a little out of breath, but alive. And the thing that had hunted her for so long was gone. She did not say anything. She just stepped forward and put her arms around Eli Carter and held on like she was never going to let go. And Eli, who had not been embraced by another human being in 20 years, stood very still for a moment, not knowing what to do with his hands. And then, slowly, he put his arms around her too. The two of them stood there in the doorway, the forgotten cowboy and the running woman, holding on to each other in the dark. Neither one of them was alone anymore. The baby came 11 days later. It was a hard night. There was no doctor close enough, no time to fetch one, so it was just Eli and Rose and old Tuck and a storm rolling in over the valley. But Eli Carter had pulled 100 calves in his time, and he was steady when it counted, and just before dawn, with the rain easing off, Rose gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Eli held that child while Rose rested. This tiny new person wrapped in a clean cloth, no bigger than a loaf of bread. And the old cowboy who had buried his own child 20 years before sat by the fire holding someone else's daughter, and he wept. Quiet tears. The kind a man cries when something he thought was dead inside him turns out to have only been sleeping. Rose named the baby Sarah. She did it without knowing. Eli had never told her his late wife's name. When she said it, when she told him she had always loved the name Sarah, Eli had to go outside and stand on the porch for a while. When he came back in, his eyes were red, but he was smiling. "It's a good name," was all he said. "It's a real good name." Rose did not leave. There was never really a conversation about it. There was no need to be anywhere else and every reason to stay. The empty chair at Eli's table was not empty anymore. The second coffee cup came down out of the cupboard and got used every morning. The ranch house at the end of the valley, which had been so silent for so long, filled up with the sounds of a baby and a dog, and two people slowly learning how to be a family. The town noticed, eventually. That was the strange thing. For 20 years, nobody had paid Eli Carter any mind at all. But word gets around in a small valley. Word about 3 strangers who rode in hurt and rode out warned. Word about a baby born at the Carter place. Word about the woman folks started seeing beside Eli when he came to town for supplies, and how Eli Carter, the silent ghost at the end of the valley, had started talking again. Smiling even. People who had not spoken to him in 2 decades started nodding to him on the street. Then saying hello. Then stopping to admire the baby. It was as if the whole town was slowly remembering that Eli Carter existed, that he had been there all along at the end of the valley waiting. But here is the truth of it, and Eli knew it better than anyone. It was not the town that brought him back to life. It was her. A frightened pregnant woman who had crawled up his road on her hands and knees, with nowhere else in the world to go, and who had needed him, really needed him, at the exact moment he had decided he was good for nothing and never would be again. She had not known the broken man the town had given up on. She had only known the man who carried her out of the dirt and sat by her bed all night and stood between her and 3 guns without flinching. She had reached his ranch a stranger running for her life. And without meaning to, she had reached something in him that 20 years of silence had buried but never quite killed. Years later, little Sarah would ask her father, because that is what Eli became to her, her father in every way that counted, she would ask him how he and her mama met. And Eli Carter, older now, gray and content, with a family around him he never thought he would have, would always tell her the same thing. "Your mama came up that road when I had stopped believing anybody ever would," he would say. "The whole world had walked right past me for 20 years. And then one day when I was sure my story was over, she reached my gate." He would smile. "Turns out it wasn't the end of my story at all. Turns out it was just the part before she got there." And the man no one had noticed for 20 years would pull his daughter close, with his wife beside him and his old dog at his feet, in a ranch house that was no longer quiet. He was not invisible anymore. He was home. The end.